Just to introduce myself a little bit, my name is Tom Manuel. I'm the founder and director of Wellstudio Architecture. I'm a fully qualified UK architect, member of the RIBA and ARB, and we at Wellstudio design homes which support mental and physical well-being. So we're really passionate about how we can design buildings that maximize natural light, that use natural materials, connect residents to nature, and many other aspects which I will go into on the webinar. We are also well-accredited professionals. So some of you may have already heard of it, but there's something called the Well Building Standard, which is a globally recognized standard for how to design and operate buildings to support mental and physical well-being. And we have studied that and passed the exam required to become qualified and knowledgeable about that. And that really underpins a lot of our well-being expertise. So we are a small studio. We're based in Chelsea in London. We've been in practice for 10 years, and there's four of us, as you can see from this lovely photo from a recent event which we visited, and we really operate like a family in the office, and a very close-knit business. About myself and why am I interested in co-living? Well, I've lived in communities for much of my life in different ways, with different numbers of people, and I've really experienced all kinds and aspects of community living. And I've always seen as an architect that there's a lot of potential beyond just the functional requirements of a building, designing a building that keeps the rain out and lets the sun in and keeps people warm. But that also a building can facilitate community, and it can support social interaction, and it can facilitate different kinds of people to live there, introverted, extroverted. And so there's really a whole art and a science attached to how you design buildings that really work for community. To move on to our first slide of the afternoon, some of you may already know a lot about co-living, some of you may not, but just to briefly introduce what co-living actually is again, it's always good to recap. The dictionary definition of co-living is that it is a modern form of communal living in which residents get a private bedroom in a furnished home with shared common areas. And this definition is further extrapolated in the industry definition, which is that it's a form of residential shared living in which third-party service providers rent living spaces that allow three or more biologically unrelated residents to live communally and conveniently while sharing space and resources. And it's that definition that really underpins the presentation today, because the kind of co-living that we're going to be focusing on today is the one that has a third-party service provider, and it is of that kind of a scale. Why would you want to live in a co-living? What are the benefits of co-living? So obviously the first and foremost benefit of co-living is community. And we live now in a very individualized society where we can sort of order almost everything online, and we don't really need to socially interact with people. But actually, that has resulted in an epidemic of loneliness. In fact, 1 in 4 people in the UK report that they are feeling lonely, and many are on antidepressants. And so there's a desire, actually, and it's sort of innate desire, really, of humans to actually want to live with each other and want to interact with each other. And so there's there's kind of a response to this of a regaining of interest in community forms of community living. So what is it about community living that really works for people, and why is it such a good idea? And the first and most obvious aspect of it is collaboration. So just imagine that you're living in a shared space with 4 other people, and you work and do your 5 days a week normal working week. Now, if you wanted to have a hot meal on the table every day of the working week when you got home, if you had 4 people and you had a rota where one person cooked every evening, you would only have to cook once in the working week to come home every day of the working week and have a hot meal on the table. So collaboration really works. And not only collaboration in terms of practical necessities such as cooking, but also things like knowledge and sharing resources. So imagine that you're a software developer or a coder and you live with other coders. You can share knowledge and resources about coding with other people, and you're going to benefit and know how to solve and fix the bugs or whatever in your code that much faster. Life is going to be that much easier. And also, there might be an even bigger benefit, for instance, where you're living with somebody and you end up collaborating together and starting a business together because of your shared interest in coding. Sharing resources, sharing knowledge, really, really good idea. What about mental and physical well-being? Well, mental well-being is really supported by co-living because say you're going through a breakup or you've just lost your job or there's some other really difficult point in your life, in co-living, you've got other housemates that are there for you that are going to be able to share the weight of your situation and be there as friends and help to support you through those hard times. So mental well-being is really supported in co-living, and also physical well-being, because essentially if you have, say, 20 or even 100 or even 400 people living together in a co-living building, then there's the shared resource to then have more amenities, more shared areas that you wouldn't otherwise be able to afford or have in your own home. For instance, they could be a cafe or a co-working space, or even a swimming pool or a spa. So you can really benefit by sharing resources mentally and physically. So what about convenience? We live busy lives, and many of us have full-time jobs, and we're basically always trying to manage a lot of different aspects of our life. So if someone, an operator of a co-living building, just gives you one bill to pay a month, which takes care of your gas, your electricity, your broadband, your service charge, etc., that's so much easier and so much more convenient. Or maybe that operator sends a cleaner around once a week to clean all the spaces and clean your room, so you don't have to worry about cleaning. So people with those busy lifestyles really benefit from the convenience aspects of co-living. And then the final aspect of co-living is sustainability. Actually, co-living can massively reduce individual carbon footprints. And the reason why it can do that is that you're sharing collective resources. For instance, washing machines. So in individual apartments, everyone would have their own washing machine. That would be using a certain amount of energy to both manufacture and make the washing machines and then use them. But if you have a co-living building and you pool all those resources, you can have a lesser number of larger industrial washing machines that are more efficient in terms of their energy use, that actually use less energy to build them. And therefore, you're massively reducing the amount of energy that's going into washing clothes in the building. And that's just one example, but there are numerous examples of how that can work. Some of the benefits of co-living, and it's good here to mention that our great partners at Conscious Co-Living also have developed what they call the Conscious Co-Living Manifesto Framework, which is kind of underpinning how you can go about building and operating a co-living community that supports well-being, that operates sustainably, supports community, connection with ourselves, connection with others, and connection with nature. Check out their website, consciouscoliving.com, and you can find out more about it there. So we've talked about why you'd want to live in a co-living building. Well, who actually does live in a co-living building? So there's 5 main groups of people that live in a co-living building. The first and by far the largest group are the young professionals. Young professionals really benefit from basically the convenience and the community aspects of co-living. So they live busy lives, so they don't have a lot of time to pay all the bills and do the cleaning, and that really works for them. And then they're often wanting to make friends. They might move to a new city, and maybe they're looking for a romantic partner. All of those things are possible in a co-living building. Kind of very similar to the young professionals, but kind of a new group of people are the digital nomads. So digital nomads are people that have managed to find a way through their job or being freelancers to work remotely on their laptops, and they can travel around the world and have no fixed location, and actually explore the world, travel the world while they're working. So they really love co-living because of the short-term stay aspect of co-living, the fact that they can live there just for a few weeks or a month. They can parachute into these communities. People are often more open and easy to get to know in co-living, and they can stay in these beautiful locations around the world. And another group which really loves co-living are students. So students often live in purpose-built student accommodation, but more and more of them are now living in co-living buildings as well. And the reason why they love co-living is similar to the other previous two groups in the terms of community aspect. They might be moving to a new city to study for a master's, and so they might want to make friends, and they can easily make friends in the co-living building. They'll probably find other people of a similar age, maybe in a similar situation, and the convenience aspect also really works for them. The fourth group, quite an unexpected one, and one which you wouldn't immediately think about, but older single adults actually love co-living. And you can imagine someone maybe in their 50s, maybe even in their 60s. They might have gone through a divorce recently. They might have been widowed. There might have been some other change in their life circumstance, and they actually see co-living as a great opportunity to kind of turn a page on their life, make a fresh start, and get to know a whole bunch of new people, and kind of be surrounded by that kind of energy of co-living, which really can invigorate them, and so they're actually a small but significant part of co-living. And then finally, the fifth group are families. Now, families require more specialized amenities. So for co-living to work for families, really it's really good if it has childcare facilities and outdoor recreational space. But some co-living providers are now providing this, and those co-living operators are creating really great co-living for families. So imagine that there's two parents, both with a full-time job, working in a city. They can live quite close into the center of the city with their children. And while they go to work, the children are being looked after in the co-living creche. And that cuts down on their commuting time, that increases the time they can spend with their kids, and makes life a whole lot easier. So that can be a really good thing, actually, family co-living. So on top of these different types of people that might live in a co-living building, it's always worth considering as well where they are on the spectrum between introverted and extroverted. To think about that, each group might have its own kind of setting on that spectrum. And when designing a co-living building, when thinking about where to build a co-living building, these things are quite good to consider at an early stage. So we talked about who lives in a co-living building. What about who operates a co-living building? So they are known as the co-living operator, and they have five main aspects to them. So they look after the administration of the building, and paying all of the bills, and managing the staff, and all of the permissions, etc. They manage how people move into the building, what the process is there, and that can be quite detailed because you want to select the right people to live together that will form good community groups. And they also manage the process of onboarding and how people leave. And sometimes there can be situations where there's a disruptive person in the building, and that needs to be managed in a professional and in a grounded way. There's managing the facilities of the building, electricity, gas, water, etc., lifts and staircases, etc. And then there's resident well-being. There's how do you look after the residents? How do you support them? They might have certain problems and things that they're trying to do in terms of operating inside the building, fixing things for them, looking after them and their well-being, high priority for a good operator. And then also that operator would organize events in the building. So things like yoga classes maybe in the morning, or Friday drinks, or co-working events. So we talked about what co-living is, who lives in co-living, what an operator is. Now let's talk a little bit about the architecture. So conceptually, one can imagine a co-living building as being a number of different building scales. So the smallest scale would be the bedroom or the studio areas. So there'd be smaller private spaces, maybe with their own bathroom and sometimes with their own kitchenette, where the residents can live and they can have a sanctuary. And if they're feeling tired at the end of the day, they can go to their room and they've got the facilities there to just relax. Those bedrooms or studios are then combined into clusters. So you might have, say, 4 or 6 or even 8 bedrooms to a cluster, and the cluster would have some kind of shared space. So it might have shared kitchen, shared living room area, a shared working zone, a shared relaxing dining zone. So those clusters then combine inside the larger volume of the building to form the whole building. And then that building will have more shared spaces, and that building will sit within a neighborhood. So there will be a context to that building. There will be facilities, shops, and people living around that building. There will be transport interchanges near that building. And it's important when designing and thinking about a co-living building to think about that wider context of the neighborhood within which it's going to sit. So here's a conceptual section through a co-living building. So you can see, in general or often, you'd have a number of clusters arranged floor by floor, or maybe several clusters per floor. And on the ground floor area, or sometimes distributed throughout the building, you'd have these building-wide amenities and some public, maybe some of them are publicly accessible as well. So members of the public can come and use them. And on the roof, you might have some shared space, and that could be a roof terrace, and there's some really great examples of that. So what are some different examples of amenities in a co-living building? Well, there are actually many, and you probably couldn't fit them all on even 10 slides. But here, just to mention the sort of 10 most common ones, you've got libraries, you've got shared kitchen areas, you've got cinema rooms, roof terraces, cafes, swimming pools, shared laundries, and gyms. So just to now kind of bring that whole thing to life with a few real life examples of co-living, so you can really understand what I mean there when I'm describing the conceptual co-living building. There are different scales. So at the smallest scale of co-living building, a good example might be Palmer Co-living, who we actually work with, and we've worked on their interior design and fit out for their villa in Mallorca in Spain. And they have a USP of digital nomad working. So people come to live at Palmer Co-living to be in a sunny and warm place in the Mediterranean and have that kind of holiday aspect to their life, as well as working and having really good co-working spaces where they can work on their projects or their jobs. Another small-scale example of a co-living building would be Mason and Fifth in London. This is a conversion of a building retrofit of an Edwardian building right in the centre of London with 15 bedrooms, and it's been designed with the USP of well-being, actually according to the Well Building Standards. So the paint finishes are non-volatile organic compounds, the furniture is all non-VOC, the materials are natural, the air quality is good, the water quality is good, and they're a really nice kind of characterful, homely social spaces, which really help, I think, to relax you and make you feel at home when you visit the building. For an example of a medium scale co-living building, we think that Zoku in Amsterdam is a really great example. It has 113 bedrooms. It's a combination of new build and retrofit, and it's got its amazing rooftop community space. So basically, it's kind of a opposite way round to many co-living buildings. The community space is on the top of the building, but when you go up there, it's full of natural light. It's got great views over Amsterdam. It's got lots of different facilities, a restaurant, a cafe, a music area, co-working spaces. And then below that, there are these mezzanine studio bedrooms, which make use of the quite high floor to ceiling heights in the building, which incorporate these kind of platform beds with these kind of screen shutters that provide privacy, but can still open out and allow you to be part of the main space. And very clever use of kind of adaptable furniture and kind of self-contained little bathroom tucked away, and it's a really good example of co-living studio space. So that's a great example of a medium scale co-living building. And then for a large scale co-living building, a good example is the Student Hotel in Florence. So this is a really big building, again, a combination of new build and retrofit, 390 bedrooms. And its USP is really that it combines students and young professionals together. So it creates a lot of really great student accommodation, but also some rooms that you could be rented by young professionals. And then a lot of really great amenities like this rooftop swimming pool, game spaces, co-working spaces, lots of really great spaces. And also, you can visit it as a member of the public. So we've heard about what co-living is. We've heard about who lives in it. We've heard about who operates it. We've seen some examples of it architecturally. Now, but why would you want to build a co-living building? I mean, how is it going to make you money, or is it just going to be a waste of your hard-earned investment? So here we're going to look into a financial study of a co-living building, and our friend Matt Zelias at Palmer Co-Living has kindly given us access to some of the financial behind-the-scenes data of operating a co-living building, so you can really see how that stacks up and why developing and building and operating a co-living building is actually a good financial decision. So this is an example from one of their existing properties, which has 25 bedrooms. They have different price ranges for the bedrooms. The average is about €1,500 per month. And if you combine all these kind of different bedroom prices together, you get a full occupancy. If the whole building is full, you get about £40,000 a month income from your renting income for your rooms. Now you also have overheads. You have a lot of different overheads that then are deducted from that: utilities, amenities, cleaning, staff costs, and also paying Palmer as the operator to run the space. And if you add that all together, at the end of the year, your net operating income would be around 230,000 euros per annum. Now, if you then go and dive into it further and you look at what it costs you to buy the building, what it costs you to renovate the building, and your acquisition fees and your interest payment back to your lenders, so you've got 60% financing by the bank and 40% by the investor, you end up at the end of the day with a net return on your investment of around 8%. So that's for a 25 bedroom co-living. Now, you might be interested in doing a larger co-living. So how would that compare to, say, a 250 bedroom co-living? You can see from this graph that you have a roughly a linear a graph here in terms of the estimated income and the return on investment. And we're going to now look into a larger building to give you an example of a larger 250 bedroom or 228 bedroom building to see how that compares to the 25 bedroom one. So here, obviously bigger building, higher construction costs, much more money for a throw at the thing to get it started. But then you can rent it out for more because you've got more rooms. So you get more rental income. You actually also have more amenities. So the amenities can bring in income, but there's higher operating costs. So you've got a lot of more staff and people involved in running the building and costs in terms of energy use, etc., and cleaning, etc., and maintenance. But if you kind of summarize all that, you basically end up with different amenities in there: cafe and a restaurant, an event space, a bedroom, studio, apartments, different forms of studios and rooms, and then gym, wellness space, and a supermarket. So this is a big building we're talking about. But you actually, if you add it all up, once you get going and you're in getting towards full occupancy, you can start year one about 3% ROI, but you can get up to almost 16% ROI, and the average is around 12%. So again, a pretty profitable asset class. So that's given you a little overview from Palmer. Kindly, Matt Zelias from Palmer Living couldn't make it onto the webinar today, but he was very happy for me to present those slides on his behalf. And please do have a look at Palmer's offering, their website, palmercoliving.co. They've just secured some funding to expand, but they're always looking for new investors. So just to summarize that section of the webinar in terms of how does the yield from co-living compare to other asset classes? So you've got build to rent, which is about 3 to 4% yield per annum. You've got purpose-built student accommodation, which is a little bit higher, maybe 3.75% to 4.75% yield per annum, and then co-living, which can be ranged between 5 and up to 12% yield per 12% plus yield per annum. So the potential of co-living to give a really high yield is quite something. So we've told you about co-living, we've told you about how it works and who lives in it and how it's kind of put together, and also how it works financially. And you can see that it's quite a good proposition. So the question is really, why wouldn't you be interested in doing co-living? But and the next question is really, well, say you wanted to build or buy a building and convert it into co-living, how could we at Wellstudio help you do this? And so we offer a number of services. We're experts in co-living design, and alongside conscious co-living, we can bring a number of other consultants on board who are also experts in co-living design and operation. And we offer these services to you which might really help you. So for instance, say you found a building or you had a piece of land that you were considering developing as co-living, we can do an initial feasibility study for you. So what we do is we will take your site and maybe some higher sort of initial building plans, and we put those together if it's a new build, and we'll look at what the local planning policy is in the area, what kind of massing you could get on the site for your building, how you could work if you have an existing building with adapting that for co-living. A high level kind of quick study of how many bedrooms you might be able to get in the building, and we'd work with you on what kind of size and type of bedrooms, and then what kind of amenities you might want to have and could have in your building. And once we've got those kind of initial points decided at a high level, we can then work with our financial consultant from Conscious Co-Living, who can put together a really quick Excel spreadsheet calculation of what kind of ROI you might be looking at with a building such as that. So that can really help you get a handle on whether this particular site or piece of land or building is kind of a good proposition for co-living. So here's an example of a feasibility study we carried out for a housing association in Oxford in the UK. It's a beautiful town called Abingdon, and we did a number of studies on this building in terms of converting its existing use, which was self-contained apartments, into co-living, and how many co-living bedrooms we could get, and what the makeup of the building would be, and where the amenities would go. And here are some examples of how we did the study there. And the client was really happy with this. The client felt like this is a really valuable piece of work for them, and they're now looking into the financial side of the proposition. And obviously it can take many years with large organizations like housing associations to move to the next step, but a really great start on their journey into co-living. So the next service, so say you decided that this is the right site and it looks like it's feasible, you want to move forward and get the whole building designed, we can help you there. We will then go into more detail and look at the exact bedroom designs, the cluster layouts and how they fit together in the building, the whole building design and how it's put together and what kind of amenities go into the building. So that's that schematic level of detail. We offer you that. And then here's some examples of that level of detail and concept design we carried out for Ars Community, which a co-living operator in London, a new build co-living, 96 bedrooms, sustainable, using cross-laminated timber frame construction. How that would be laid out with the clusters and arranged with looking at biophilic design and creating studio bedroom spaces, which are really, really nice for the inhabitants, as well as the shared kitchen living spaces, and then how that would look visually with these balconies overlooking the city. And then another example of the concept design, schematic design we've done is for Habli Hotels. They're based in Chennai in India. Again, they brought us a piece of land and said, look, we're thinking about building co-living here. Can you design us a building? And we went to the detail of looking at all the bedroom layouts and how we would terrace this building so it faced the sea and everyone had a view, and looking at the sun path and its orientation and how you could maximize the amount of shade that it would get so it would be easier to ventilate and cool in the hot climate, etc., etc. So we did a whole study there, really well received again by the client. And then, of course, COVID hit and they've had to sort of rethink everything since then, but definitely a building that they're still looking to develop further. So you've now got a schematic design of your building, you want to get planning permission. Again, we can help you there. We'll do all the research around the particular planning requirements of the location, as we said, which we initially would have done at feasibility, and carry that forward and then make all the drawings required and employ the correct consultants to create reports that are required by the local authority and communicate with local authority to gain you planning permission. And we have some good experience on gaining planning permission for co-living, especially in London. And just to give you a brief summary of the different options, you've got the C3 residential use class. Some co-living providers like to look at using C3 as kind of a number of almost reimagining the co-living building as a number of self-contained C3 or C4 units and then applying for permission that way. But another route, and when you have a larger, if you have a larger building, can be the sui generis route where you make a bespoke proposal. And then there's also within London a new policy, or a couple of years old now, for large-scale purpose-built shared living accommodation, H18, which you can use as a route to apply for your larger scale co-living buildings through. So here's an example of a project we recently gained planning permission for a women's co-living for one of our clients in South London in Dulwich. Really good to work with this client, and we've now got planning permission for this building. And that's just the start of our services, basically up to planning. But after planning, we offer technical design and construction methodology, and also interior design and an interior fit out package, something we've worked with Palmer Co-Living on in terms of how the internal design of all the spaces will be. So really the full service on your co-living building. And that brings us pretty much to the end of today's webinar. Please do get in touch with us. We love talking to you, whether you have a live project or not right now. We always enjoy making new contacts in the industry. We are thought leaders as well as architects. Visit our website, wellstudiocoliving.com. You can find out more about our designs, our projects, and our philosophy. And please do come on further webinars. We have upcoming this year a webinar on co-living interior design. We have a webinar on shared student living design, and also older persons living. So all the kinds of forms of co-living. Over the course of this year, we'll be launching webinars on those. And also please do sign up for our mailing list, which you can do via our website, and stay in touch with what's going on in the rest of the practice as the year goes by. So that brings me to the end of my little presentation today. I open the floor for any questions, and please do feel free, if you have a question, to unmute yourself and ask directly, or type in the chat window, and I can read that, and then we can open the floor now to any questions. So thank you very much for joining today. So thank you, Kelly. I just saw your message. It's nearly midnight here in Australia. Very informative and good night. So thank you for joining, Kelly. We really appreciate you staying up late to come on the webinar with us today. And I hope you enjoyed it and sleep well. Any other questions? Carol or Sarah or Alberte? Feel free to fire away. Aha, got another question coming up here. Great presentation. So this is from Carol. Thanks, Carol. Great presentation. Thanks. Have you ever considered multi-generational co-living? Yes, that's a really good question, Carol, and it is something that we've looked into, and it's probably a smaller percentage of co-living than even the other kind of groups of people that we've talked about earlier that at the moment. But it's definitely growing, and it is something that can have many further benefits in terms of collaboration. We think so. For instance, imagine a community where you've got younger people that can learn skills and crafts and have knowledge transfer from older people in the community, mentoring or childcare. So, you know, when you combine different ages of people together, there are many benefits collectively for many of the kind of functions of living, as well as emotion, you know, mental well-being is supported, I think, emotional support in many ways. So yeah, it's a great question and something that we have looked into, and we want to visit more multi-generational co-living buildings as we move forward in our research into co-living. Great. Anyone else would like to ask a question? Sarah or Alberte? Brilliant. Okay. Well, we'll end the webinar there, but do feel free to send us an email if you've got a further question that comes to mind, and do stay in touch. And we look forward to seeing you soon and inviting you to another webinar soon. So thanks for joining today. It's been great to meet everybody.